humiliating way. But why? But why? Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies. I'm intrigued by those Greeks who come to Jesus. They were in all likelihood what were called God-fearers, people who weren't Jewish, didn't want to follow all the Jewish laws like circumcision, but they were drawn to Jewish worship and ways. So these were people who were almost converts, but weren't willing to commit. And yet they came all the way to Jerusalem to see Jesus. Jesus doesn't say, well, join everyone else in the temple tomorrow when I'm teaching. And he doesn't say, stick with me and you'll see the kind of healing God can do through me. Jesus says this. He says, if you really want to see me, look at a grain of wheat. If it sits by itself, nothing happens. It's dry and lifeless and inert. Bury it into the ground, and that's when things start to happen. It produces food, which provides life. It produces more seeds, which can be buried and produce more crops. And on and on and on. I don't think the point probably was lost on those almost committed people. Jesus is saying, my life is that grain of wheat, a seed which exists purely to bring life to life. And that can only happen when I'm willing to give my whole self in love. I can't hold anything back. When I do give myself fully, God can grow the great crop of faith and hope and love that this beautiful, suffering world needs so much. If you really want to see me, Jesus continues, you will serve me. And if you serve me, you will follow me. And if you follow me, you will go wherever I go, which isn't about trailing me from city to city. If you really want to see me, you will follow me in giving your whole life in love to bring life to others. And then Jesus continues. He's not finished talking to those Greeks and to everyone listening. He says, now is my soul, my heart troubled. You could hear that as Jesus saying how sad he is to be facing death at the hands of the powers that are closing in on him. But I believe he is troubled by something much larger than that. I believe Jesus' heart is troubled by the depth of his compassion for this world. His heart is ripped in two by the hostilities that divide humanity in so many ways, small and large, which are being more and more exposed lately in our own country. Jesus' heart grieves for what one human created in the image of God can justify doing to another human. So recently, a man tortured by a Christianity that convinced him of his own condemnation kills 8 people, mostly Asian women, south of temptation. Jesus' heart is troubled and in turmoil to see so many just in plenty, but in luxury, far beyond what we would need to live on. A glut of consumption, gearing up again now the pandemic, while billions of people on our planet live. Why does Jesus tell us about his heart? Because, friends, to accept Jesus's mysterious, often repeated invitation to live, you must die, we're going to need a heart like Jesus's heart. To go where Jesus goes, we're going to need a troubled heart, a heart of deep compassion for our world. Only 4 weeks ago, on Ash Wednesday, we confessed our own hearts were hardened, right? We confessed that we were in denial about that. And we pray, heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. We heard God's wonderful promise to do exactly that in us and for us, accompanied by these words to us: rend, tear your hearts, and not just your garments. And then this confusing word: the sacrifice acceptable to God is a broken spirit, a broken and a contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. In other words, God promises us a new heart like Jesus's, a heart torn open in compassion for our world, a heart willing to try to love our enemies, willing to try to forgive the unforgivable, undertake the impossible, trust the power of God is actively bringing life into the world out of the sin and death that we see all around. Jesus uses this humble metaphor of a grain of wheat to help the Greeks and us understand. Thinking about it, not that I've ever been a farmer and only an intermittent gardener, but a kernel of grain that just stays a kernel, is not actually good for much, right? It can't fulfill its purpose of bringing food to hungry bellies, bringing the beauty of fields of amber grain to our senses, or bringing people together around a table to share life and break bread. If that kernel of grain is never buried in the ground, the life within it, the potential for life, will never crack it open. It will never be transformed into something new. So it can bring life into being. It isn't just that it receives life, it brings life into being. It won't produce more seeds with their potential for more food, more beauty, more community, more life. That's how your heart and life and mine are too. And that's a promise to us from Jesus. We're full of that potential for life and love that Jesus came to crack open. Amazing love. We are seeds scattered here and there. We scatter seeds here and there. Sometimes lodging and rooting and producing fruit. We are seeds, the beautiful lilies of the field and the blooming cherry trees. We are seeds, folks, that can sprout in bits of dirt, in the cracks of cement, the hardness of injustice, splitting the cement into two. This zero-sum game at all. In fact, it's the opposite of that. Giving your life away for love, releasing and letting go of your life, you will discover new life. Too often we think we've got to choose between caring for ourselves and caring for others, caring for our family and caring for our neighbors. But when we give ourselves a zest and a purpose, the something that our souls, our hearts long for. Oh God, and renew a right spirit within me. Are you willing to let God break your heart with the sorrows of the world? Are you willing to give up the hardness in your heart that has protected you from feeling the sadness of the realities that fill the news and often our own relationships? If our pandemic is teaching us anything, it's teaching us, friends, we can't live life without relationships and human connection. We're created for love at our core, at our heart. We cannot emerge from this year unchanged. As painful and deadening and life-draining as this pandemic has been, what if we emerge from it like the seeds you sometimes hear about that archaeologists find in an urn that's 2,500 years old, which sprout? After so long, that life is so resilient and real. What if all this waiting we're barely holding on through is really pent up potential for loving? What if what feels so painful, waiting and waiting, is painful because it's love building up inside of us? Pent up need and demand and desire to connect, because that is who we are, made in the image of God. Hear Jesus's promise, friends. Hear the promise in that rather daunting thing that he keeps saying about us needing to die. His promise to you is, you will live fully when you dare to give your life away in love. And your life, friends, it will release life into the world, changing it from a place where nobody sees and nobody cares into a place where compassion is a possibility and change can be hoped for. And certainly then, we will see Jesus.